Hi there. Today I'd like to share some thoughts on looking after your cash flow by being more conscious of what you spend your money on. My name is Carl Craig West and I'm the author of the best-selling book Smashing Self-Employment, which you can get from Amazon. I'm going to put a link below if you're interested. And I'm also the creator of the smashingselfemployment.com online business community, where you'll find tools, ideas, tips, templates and all sorts of useful stuff to help you be a better self-employed person. And if you like this video, please click on the like button. It'd be great to have you on board as a subscriber. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a little icon in the bottom right-hand corner. Also, share it out far and wide if you've got self-employed friends who you see perhaps wasting a little bit of money on stuff they don't need. Well, okay, what do I mean by looking after the cash flow by being conscious of what you spend your money on? Now, I'm going to tell you a few stories about things that I've seen people do, and it's often very early on in their self-employed or business life, where they're spending money on stuff that they simply could have spent on more useful things or in a less wasteful way. Now, there's an awful lot you can buy to make you look and feel like you are properly in business or properly self-employed these days. But thankfully, there are many ways of doing things a little bit cheaper to help your cash flow, but also many ways of just totally scrapping that spend altogether. And I'm just going to cover some key areas where you can begin to chip away at the expenditure to make your profits expand. Now, one of the lessons I learned very early on in my self-employed life was looking after the money. In other words, the idea behind being self-employed or being in small business is to sell more stuff, bring in more money than you spend. And the bit that's left over is called profit. Or if you're self-employed, that's your drawings, what you take out of the business for you. So the idea is to examine things in two ways. First of all, what are you spending? And the next, how much are you selling? And hopefully the selling bit is considerably larger than the spending bit. But there are some areas where I think we could all do with a little bit of resetting in the way we think about stuff in terms of what we buy. So I'm just going to reel off a bit of a list of stuff where I've seen people go wrong. First of all, when you're very early on in your self-employed life, there seems to be this obsession with having a logo. Now, I've seen people spend days just trying to work out a logo, spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds on a little bit of a graphic that's going to go on their business cards and is going to go on their website. And to be honest, you simply don't need to do that. Now, when you're starting out, cash is probably a wee bit tight. Do you want to be spending all this time and money on doing something which, quite frankly, only lends a little bit to your business? Now, I know all the brand designers and graphic designers out there are going to go, man, oh, you absolutely have to have a graphic and you have to have colour scheme and stuff like that. Actually, I hate to break it to you, but in bare bones terms, you simply don't. I know a guy who is a very successful sales consultant, self-employed, makes a bunch of blooming money. Does he have a logo? No, because people are more interested in what he does and how he can help than they are about how pretty the little graphic on his business card looks. And that, in my view, is how you should look. Unless you're a graphic designer, in which case you probably want a pretty graphic. But to be honest, I've always got by with some very, very basic graphics. I've used a website called Fiverr.com in the past to create graphics, and you should too. It's dirt cheap. It's a great place to start if you feel that you need to have a graphic. And then when you've got the money, you can afford to invest in some proper brand design. But to begin with, you simply don't need to spend 100 more on a logo. If you go to one of the top-end design agencies in central London, they'll charge you thousands for a logo. However, if you went to somebody in your local village, it would cost a tenth of that, if that. And so there's a lot of disparity between what you can pay. And then you go to somewhere like Fiverr.com, and for $10 you can have, get 3 people for $10 each to design a graphic, and you pick the one you like. So the idea behind this whole graphic thing, in my view, just needs chucking out of the water. Yes, how you look is important. But in all honesty, it's not worth spending a ton of money on, because most people, when it comes to marketing and presenting your business to the market, they're more interested in what you can do for them than how pretty your graphics look. Now, I would say one thing. Your website, if you're going to have a website, needs to look the part. It needs to say the right things, have the right things on it, tell people what's important about you and why you're good at what you do and why they should listen, and more importantly, have a call to action. But again, The graphic is only a minor thing. The messaging is far more important. And yes, I know I might cop a bit of flack from the design industry, but I hate to say it, but they've got a vested interest. I mean, I've even advised clients in the web design side of things, look, you don't need to spend a ton of money on a graphic. And in theory, we could get away without it. Because all we need is a message which clearly communicates what you do, how you can help your customers, and how they can get in touch. So have a think about that. Another biggie that I've seen people spend a ton of money on is furniture. Now, this can run into hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And when you're starting out, you may not necessarily have this cash. So I would recommend you have a serious think about what you need. A lot of people work from the kitchen table, and that makes absolute sense. But there's a big drive now towards standing up desks. And I've seen desks for standing up that range from just a couple of £100 up to a couple of £1,000. And to be honest, they do, by and large, the same thing. So have a think about furniture. When I moved into an office, all of the furniture that I bought was from a local charity shop. All of it. It cost me, I don't know, maybe 150 quid for the whole lot. Because I just didn't know that I needed the furniture. I don't need brand spanking new. It doesn't need to be gold plated. It just needs to do the job. And I hate to say it, going to a specialist office furniture company can be quite pricey, whereas you might want to go to, if you've got the money, perhaps consider going to IKEA. They've got some good stuff. But I would always start, if you're just getting going, or you're moving into an office and you need some furniture, consider going to a charity shop. A lot of charity furniture shops out there. Go and have a look. I've got chairs, tables, cabinets, chest of drawers, all sorts of stuff from a charity shop for next to no money. And in my view, it's important you're actually recycling stuff as well. Another area where I see people wasting an awful lot of money is spending on technology. And another first biggie is, do you need the latest smartphone? Do you need the most expensive smartphone out there? It might make you feel good, but your customers just don't give a monkeys about what your phone is. I've got quite an old phone. I've had it for years. Never really bothered to upgrade. I'm going to now in the near future, but I certainly don't follow the trend in having the latest phone. Just no need. As long as it does what it needs to do you need to spend £1,000 on a phone? Probably not. If it makes you feel good and makes you feel important, spend the money. But you don't need to for the sake of your business. Another thing I see people do is spending money on high-end technology like computers. And again, you just don't need to do this. You don't need to buy yourself a MacBook Pro at a couple of £1,000 when, quite frankly, a 650 quid Windows a Windows laptop will do exactly the same thing for a considerably less money. You don't need to buy a top-of-the-range computer. Just get something that's going to work and do the job and continue to do the job for a period of time. Again, you don't need to overspend on this. You just need to think about what it is that you need. If you haven't got the cash to be spending all of this stuff, then just don't do it. Think about what you absolutely have to have. And that goes for all kinds of equipment as well. One of my clients, she's a food producer, and she bought all of the stuff for her food production used. She looked around, she looked on eBay, she looked on other auction sites, etc., and found all of the stuff that she uses for food production that it was used. It was pre-loved, as the mantra goes these days. But she got it cheap, and it enabled her to get up and running quite quickly, quite cheaply, simply because she didn't have to spend a ton of money on getting set up. So think, if you need equipment, can you get it used? There's a big drive in the UK towards reuse now. There's an awful lot of people repairing things, whereas even 5 years ago, they would have just been scrapped. Now, my food producing client, when she got the business up and running, and she got cash flow and she got profits, she invested in newer equipment, but she got started with used equipment really, really cheaply. Another thing I see people wasting money on, and again, I might get a bit of flack for this, is the feel that people need to have an accountant. Now, if you're self-employed in the UK, you are not legally obliged to have an accountant. In fact, even if you run a limited company, you're not legally obliged to have an accountant. It's kind of handy to have one as a friend or just to ask ideas from, but you don't need to spend hundreds of pounds a year on an accountant. And if you do, you need to make sure that accountant is as much a business advisor who's helping you in your business as they are just filing your tax return for you. Because unfortunately, I've worked in the accounting industry. A lot of accountants are lazy. A lot of accountants aren't nearly as good as they think they are, and quite frankly, just become a hole in the pocket. And on top of that, I've seen accountants make some serious mistakes which cost their clients thousands and thousands of pounds. So, not saying all accountants are like that, but if you feel the need to have an accountant, ask other people about who they use and ask why they use them. Now, if it says, I just use them for doing the tax returns every day, think about how much does that cost. Because to be honest, doing your tax return takes maybe 30 minutes. So you shouldn't necessarily be spending a ton of blooming money to have this. You can learn to do it yourself. There are videos out there. But in my view, an accountant can be quite pricey if you aren't using accountants particularly well. I don't have an accountant. I have friends who are accountants who I ask for advice from, and I pay them for that ad hoc advice. But I've had a bookkeeper in the past, and that turns out to be more cost effective because I hate doing bookkeeping. It's just mind numbing, in my opinion. But there are people who love it. But the whole point is, try and get value for money if you feel like you have to have an accountant. Don't just get them doing the absolute basic. Ask them why they're good. Ask around, get recommendations, ask them why they use that particular accountant or that particular bookkeeper. And if you feel like they could be somebody you could work with who's going to help your business, then by all means go and talk to them. In my opinion, accountants should more than pay for themselves in how they help your business. Because ultimately, if you think about it, your success is their success. If they're there just to do the bare minimum, then quite frankly, you could just shop around and get the cheapest possible price. As long as they present the numbers to the tax offices properly, then you don't need to spend a ton of money. Now, another thing that I see a lot of people considering, and again, you may not necessarily agree here, is the need to have an office rather than working from home. Now, I've worked from home for a big chunk of my self-employed life, and I don't enjoy it. So I work from an office. Doesn't have to cost me a ton of money. In fact, it doesn't, and neither should it cost you a bunch of money. So first of all, are you productive working from home? Is home a conducive environment for you to get stuff done? It's, of course, the benefit of working from home is that it's dirt cheap. You don't need to buy all the gear. If you've got a spare room, you can deck that out as an office or a workspace. And so you can work from home and it saves you a bunch of money. But if you do feel the need to get an office, don't necessarily think that you have to have some swanky city centre office just for the sake of your business. You really don't need it. I don't have a swanky city centre office. Our office costs just a few £100s a month. I rent out a desk to somebody else to help pay for it. He's more than happy to have somewhere to work. I enjoy having the company, but there's loads of other things you could do. You could go to workshare spaces. There's loads of rent-a-desk places out there, hot desking, etc. You could even get shared facilities with that and all sorts of things. So if you feel that you can't work from home, have a look at your options. Can you get a workshare space where you're just effectively renting a desk in a larger room? They are quite cost effective. It enables you to get out of home, you get to meet people. Can be a little bit noisy depending on where it is and who's there, but it just enables you to get away. If you do feel the need to rent an office, don't instantly think city centre. City centre is expensive. I looked at an office in the city centre of Leicester and it would have cost me £1,000 a year just to park. I thought, why would you do that? So I decided against it. I've got an office, a small office, on the outskirts of the city, not far from home, and it's brilliant. It's really, really good. It's dead convenient, close to shops, etc. So don't feel that you need to spend a ton of money on office. If you feel that you can't work from home, if you provide a service or that you do where you can afford to work from a rent-a-desk place, go and do that. If you have to have an office, look at your options. Again, think back. You don't have to kit it out with all the latest expensive furniture. Mine's full of charity shop furniture. It does the job. It really does. Again, don't think you need to buy the latest, hottest technology. Get the best deal you possibly can on broadband and telephone, because to be honest, they're all much alike. But have a think about other costs as well, like rates, etc., heat and lights that you may need to consider. So, and finally, here's one thing I see, and it doesn't necessarily frustrate me, but my designer Claire, she likes to work from coffee shops. And a while back, she said, I've decided to go and start working at McDonald's. And I said, why is that? And she said, well, the coffee's just as good, the Wi-Fi is really good, but the coffee is half the price of the local Starbucks. Isn't that interesting? And she said, I'm wasting all this money going to a Starbucks when I can do just as much work in McDonald's and save myself a bunch of money. And she says, I get the coupons with McDonald's, and every 6th, 7th coffee is free. So the point from her point of view is that even just chipping down the costs like that, by going to McDonald's to get some work done as opposed to going to a Starbucks or a Costa here in the UK or whatever it is your place, can save you a little bit of money. She's also a big fan of doing virtual meetings now. I guess we all have with the COVID thing. And she said, well, actually, it saves me a ton of time. And actually, it means it saves me money having to drive places. So, can you do virtual meetings? Can you do virtual discussions? I've got clients I chat with on a very regular basis, and we do it virtually. And I belong to a coaching program. Again, we do it virtually. So it can save a ton of money. The whole crux of all of this, and I've just reeled off a handful of things where you can save yourself some time, hassle and money, is to think, do I really need this? And if I do need it, do I need to spend as much money as I originally believe? Is there a better way? Can I shop around? Can I, instead of going to a local graphic designer and spending a ton of money on a logo, go to Fiverr.com or Upwork or People Per Hour? So there are loads of ways. Can I, if I just want a tax return done, do I need to spend hundreds of pounds with an accountant where I can just get a bare bones service done with a decent bookkeeper for considerably less? Do I need to spend money on new furniture for an office? Do I even need an office? And all of this stuff. Do I need the latest technology, or do I just need something that's going to do the job adequately? So have a think about all of these things. There are loads of ways of avoiding spending more money than you need to in your business. Because remember, if you look after the cash and you're making sure you're selling well, then profits are almost inevitable. But it's very, very easy to get caught up in the trap of buying the latest this, the newest that, the most expensive, highly recommended this, the most prestigious that. And it's very easy to end up spending a ton of blooming money on things you simply don't need. And that, to me, is not good business. It's not good for you, your business, your profitability. It's not good for anybody. So I hope that's been useful. Remember, if you like the video, please subscribe. If you're watching it on YouTube, share it out far and wide. If you've got questions or comments, please put them below. We always respond to comments and questions on our social media. But that's enough from me. I appreciate you watching. I really hope, again, that's been useful. And remember to subscribe, share, like, etc. But that's it. Thanks a lot, and bye for now.